hepatocellular carcinoma.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Tariq, for your highly informative presentation. And we are lagging behind the schedule, and so we will delay the discussion till the end. Thank you.
I'm very glad to present Professor Osman Mansour, he's the head of clinical oncology NCR in the area of biochemical advances, novel agents about targeted therapy will help us. We can hear you, yes.
Thank you. My presentation is going to be about the management of advanced gastric cancer in the area of role of targeted therapy. As you know, gastric cancer presents a significant problem in some countries in Europe and Asia, where the growth rate males exceed 100,000 population. Actually, Egypt lies in low risk area with a growth rate in males around 3 in 100,000 populations. The survival of patients with metastatic disease is dismal, with a median survival less than 1 year, and chemotherapy definitely improves the overall survival compared with best supportive care by around 60 months, with definite improvement in the quality of life. And the overall response rate to single agent chemotherapy is the most effective agent, including platinum, fluorouracils, taxanes. Overall response rate rarely exceeds 20%. And almost of short duration. And a meta-analysis of randomized trial confirmed the superiority of combination chemotherapy versus immunotherapy for the treatment of advanced disease. And for regimen like systemic fluorouracil, we can have an overall response rate around 30% and the median survival rate around 9 months. And adding a third drug like anthracyclines or taxanes can augment the efficacy, and substitution of one drug to another, for example, Uzavati for cisplatin, oral campestamine for fluorouracil, can reduce or enhance tolerability, but this appears definitely at the expense of higher cost. At the second line, chemotherapy after failure platinum 5-FU, taxane has been evaluated in 2 trials. The COGAR trial, which is a phase 3 trial, in patients with locally advanced metastatic esophageal gastric carcinoma, docetaxel were compared with active supportive control, and in this study, docetaxel has been shown to improve the overall survival by around 1.6 months. Although 1.6 months is not huge, but it was statistically significant, and at least provide us with data that a certain group of patients who did not receive taxane in front line can get benefit from using the drug in the second line. Second trial, which is the Korean study, docetaxel or irinotecan was compared with post-operative care in a cohort of around 70 patients, and in this study, both drugs compared the same magnitude of survival value, survival benefit, versus post-operative care with no significant difference between docetaxel and irinotecan, and those then weekly paclitaxel has been evaluated directly with irinotecan in the phase 3 trial, and in this trial, weekly paclitaxel was associated with nearly or marginally improvement in the response rate, but this was not translated into survival benefit. On the other hand, in terms of disease survival or overall survival was not significant either. Actually, we have many molecular targets identified in patient with gastric cancer. We can see here HER2 expression around 10 to 25% of cases, mostly proximal types, expressing around 25 to 30% of cases. KRAS and BRAF mutation have been observed in around 5% of cases. EGFR expression in around 60% of cases, and mutation less than 5%, and c-MET gene amplification around 10 to 15% of cases, and immunohistochemistry positivity for c-MET was observed in around 40 to 70% of cases. HER2 staining for gastric cancer usually occur as a complete bilateral or lateral in nature. This in contrast to gastric cancer, where only complete membrane staining is classified as HER2 positivity, and this is related to the structure of the low-grade gastric adenocarcinoma cells. And we showed that the gastric cancer tumor heterogeneity occurring in about 5 to 30% of cases, and so screening of the entire specimen is required for FISH assessment and for endoscopically evaluation of endoscopically obtained biopsies should include at least 6 to 8 biopsies from different parts of the stomach, and the interpretation of the immunohistochemistry staining follows the same algorithm. For that, with breast cancer, patient with immunohistochemistry score 2 considered equivocal and cytic condition should be performed, and the patient with HER2 in CD17 more than 2 or G copy more than 6 or positive for FISH should be considered as positive test and eligible for anti-HER2 therapy. And we should notice that to be positive, at least 10% of the tumor cells should be strongly show strong aggressive activity, either bilateral or lateral, in evaluating surgical specimen. But when we interpret specimen obtained from endoscopic biopsies, at least tumor cell cluster should show a strong positivity irrespective of the percentage of tumor cells. Actually, we have many targets for anti-HER2 therapy, trastuzumab, lurbinectedin, TDM1, mirtazapine, and others. And trastuzumab has been evaluated in phase 3 trial, which is a randomized multi-center trial in patients with HER2 positive disease in combination with 5-fluorouracil, capecitabine, or persistent chemotherapy alone. This study included around 580 patients, and this study definitely trastuzumab was associated with improvement in the overall survival by almost 3 months, with a hazard ratio of 0.74 and highly significant p-value. Again, trastuzumab has been shown to improve a second endpoint, that's the response rate in attention to treat analysis, and definitely improves the progression-free survival with hazard ratio of 0.71 and p-value of 0.0002. And trastuzumab does not shown to impact overall hematological or gastrointestinal or cardiac safety profile, and the adverse event leading to cardiac death was not obviously increased in patients receiving trastuzumab therapy. And it's the first time to have a drug that can extend the overall survival beyond 1 year in patients with advanced land or metastatic disease. Lurbinectedin has been evaluated in 2 phase 3 trials. The first trial, in combination with observed capecitabine versus chemotherapy alone, have been evaluated in patients with HER2 positive advanced gastric or gastroesophageal disease as a frontline therapy, and unfortunately, lurbinectedin failed to demonstrate overall survival benefit with non-significant improvement in the overall survival. And the second trial, lurbinectedin was evaluated in as a second line in combination with paclitaxel versus paclitaxel alone, and this trial was also negative, with no clear benefit from lurbinectedin in terms of disease-free progression or overall survival benefit. And actually, unlike breast cancer, lurbinectedin is not effective in patients with gastric cancer, either as a first or second line treatment. As we know, from the synergistic effect between trastuzumab and bertuzumab, and after the success story of the combination therapy in bilateral study breast cancer, a similar approach is under current evaluation in patients with gastric cancer, in which the combination of bertuzumab and trastuzumab plus fluorobenzene and cisplatin versus the same chemotherapeutic agent and trastuzumab alone is under current evaluation in patients with HER2 positive advanced disease. Another approach is the TDM1. TDM1 is the trastuzumab bond to cytotoxic chemotherapy that retains the same antibody-dependent cell cytotoxicity and mediated internalization and the intracellular release of mirtazapine, which is potent cytotoxic agent. TDM1 is under current evaluation to those levels at 3.6 milligram per kg and 2.4 milligram per kg versus the zero choice of taxanes without lactic acid or docetaxel. This study is still ongoing and actually we don't have the data on it for the time being. On the other hand, everolimus was evaluated versus supportive care, and the study was negative with no survival value of using everolimus or fentanyl in patients with advanced gastric carcinoma. And anti-GFR directed therapy has been evaluated in phase 3 trials. The small TKI Gefitinib has been evaluated in a small study from UK, and it was negative trial for overall survival. On the other hand, cetuximab and Banitumab have been evaluated in phase 3 trials and expanded real 3 trials expectedly. In expanded trial, cetuximab was combined with capecitabine, cisplatin versus cisplatin alone in a cohort of around 900 patients, and in this study, cetuximab failed to meet the primary endpoint of overall survival benefit. And in second trial, Banitumab has been compared with chemotherapy regimen that's OOC, ibuprofen, xylotine, and castamine. Actually, patients Banitumab arm reduced at 0.5 regimen was reduced to dose of phosphocylglutamine and capecitabine. And in this study, the overall response rate was not different between the two arms, but interest, the overall progression-free survival was lower in patients receiving Banitumab, and this is reaches significance for overall survival, and the Banitumab arm showed inferior result versus chemotherapy. Actually, this can be partially explained by the lower doses used in the Banitumab arm. On the other hand, many trials showed that high level of circulating plasma vascular factor for gastrectomy could fail before replacement of patient with gastric carcinoma, and definitely there is a place for anti-angiogenic therapy, and this regard bevacizumab at a dose of 7.5 milligram per kg have been evaluated in combination with capecitabine and the beta compound. Patient allowed to continue with bevacizumab and capecitabine as they are responding to the evidence of disease progression, and in this study, definitely bevacizumab has been shown to improve the median progression-free survival and overall response rate. As regards the overall survival, observed the drug effect to show an overall survival benefit, but some group analysis shows that patients of South Asia and those with high risk group, as defined as ECOG positive, more than one, prior gastrectomy, more metastasis, intestinal type, intermittent metastasis, tend to have a statistically significant improvement of survival when used bevacizumab in combination with chemotherapy. Another approach is to target the vascular factor receptor, and ramucirumab is an IgG1 monoclonal antibody that binds to the external domain of the receptor, thereby blocking the binding of the ligand and inhibiting receptor activation. And ramucirumab has been evaluated in a phase 3 trial versus post-operative care, and in this trial, ramucirumab has been shown to improve the overall survival with hazard ratio of 0.7 and highly significant p-value, as well as progression-free survival with hazard ratio of 0.4 and highly significant p-value as well. Actually, as expected from anti-angiogenic therapy, ramucirumab was associated with higher incidence of vascular complication, including hypertension around 7.6 compared with 2.6 for the placebo arm, as well as there was an increase in the incidence of other vascular complication, including venous thromboembolism and arterial thromboembolism as compared to placebo arm. And in second trial and second line plastic tumors, in combination with paclitaxel, ramucirumab has been shown to improve the overall survival by around 2.3 months, and that's 9.6 versus 7.3, and to have impact on overall survival, and as the disease-free survival, and the overall survival value has been shown in different age group, patients below and above age of 65. Same can be seen here for progression-free survival benefit, and the patient can have an improvement of progression-free survival as a significant value. Our response-related ramucirumab arm was 28% versus 60% for those without ramucirumab. The difference was statistically significant, and again, this was independent of age. Patients younger and older than the age of 65 have the same benefit from using the drug. As regard adverse effect, definitely patient ramucirumab arm discontinued treatment due to adverse events, but there is no difference between age group regarding the adverse event patient below and above the age of 65. Another approach is the hematosurrogate factor MET pathway. This is a critically important pathway in a variety of cancer that enhance cell proliferation, invasion, metastasis, and survival. And many strategies are available to target or block this pathway, including monoclonal antibody directed against the ligand, such as daratumumab, or against its receptor, such as natuzumab. Natuzumab has been evaluated in combination for effects or multiple effects. Patient responders are allowed to continue on natuzumab until evidence of disease progression. Actually, this study was negative. There was no improvement in progression-free or overall survival was observed between chemotherapy and target therapy arms. And definitely, the drug was associated, was well tolerated, but definitely associated with high incidence of embolic and thrombotic complication. 23% compared with 8.3% for patients receiving natuzumab versus those without. The second approach is directing against the monoclonal antibody itself, the ligand itself. Daratumumab has been evaluated in combination with ibuprofen, cisplatin, and capecitabine at two dose levels, 7.5 mg and 15 mg, versus the same conservative agent alone. And in this study, c-MET efficacy positivity was observed in around 42% of cases, and in this group of patients, definitely daratumumab has been shown to improve the disease-free survival by around 50%. That's from 4.6 to 6.9, and astonishingly to reach a high significant value, nearly doubling the overall survival from 5.7 to 11.1 was highly significant p-values. And the drug is under current evaluation at a phase 3 trial in combination with the same chemotherapy agent, with a dose level fixed at 15 mg per kg. And as we know, gene expression profile enabled us was performed and reported in around 295 patients with advanced with early gastric adenocarcinoma. This helped to provide or to propose a characterization of classification of gastric cancer to 4 distinct subtypes. The chromosomally stable, actually associated with frequency of B53 mutation. The chromosomal genomically stable, commonly seen in patients with diffuse histology, and the more prognostically favorable subgroups, the macroscopic instability subgroups, with hypermutation and MLH1 silencing, and the Epstein-Barr virus, which is associated with JAK2 overexpression, mutation of PI3K kinase, and overexpression of the BDL1 and 2. Pembrolizumab, which is directed the BDL1, has been evaluated at a dose level of 10 mg per kg. Patient responded allowed to continue with the drug for at least 2 years or until disease progression, and patient with progressive disease drug was discontinued. And in this study, the overall response rate, depending on investigator review, was about 3%, and 22% was centrally reviewed. And as Dr. Pavlidis illustrated, the phenomenon of pseudo-progression can be seen here in patient who was treated with a shock protein inhibitor. We can have an initial rise or surge that can be seen in some group of patients, and then declines thereafter. And pembrolizumab has been associated with improvement of progression-free survival around 1.9 months and median overall survival is not reaching. And the primary value of this new drug is median duration of response, which is achieved around 24 weeks. And the drug was generally well tolerated. The adverse or more adverse events observed in around 10% of cases, and pneumonitis pneumonitis, which is common in patients with receiving immunotherapy, was observed only in one patient. And the drug is under phase 2 evaluation, in which pembrolizumab in combination with cisplatin and fluorouracil in patients with aplastic gastric carcinoma. And that's it, my talk. And this is the new NSI Cancer Center in Sheikh Zayed, and I hope to bridge all gaps to reach it and bring it into reality. And I hope to welcome all of you in year 2020 to hold our conference there. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no discussion now because we are lagging behind time and behind the schedule, and our presentation. It is the debate. Our next speakers will have two debate: the new adjuvant chemotherapy versus adjuvant chemoradiotherapy in gastric cancer. Chemotherapy will be presented by Professor Shawki Barzabach, and chemoradiotherapy will be presented by Professor Muhammad Abdullah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, once again. It's once again an honor for me to be here. I don't know if my colleague wants to actually present, because by the end of my talk, I think things will be clear, and maybe you won't need that much time. So I think I'll make it clear to you that it's only chemotherapy in gastric cancer. So before I talk chemotherapy or radiotherapy, I think I need to clear one thing, is what's the actual standard surgical procedure for resectable gastric cancer? Is it D1 or D2 resection? And those of you who are not familiar, D1 resection, you remove on the left-hand side, you remove the nodes in green. D2, you remove additional nodes, which are in blue over here. And of course, the black ones are D0, D3. So there has been a meta-analysis of looking at D1 versus D2 or D3, and that includes 8 randomized control trials. 3 of those trials looked at D2 versus D3. And we know that in those trials there was no difference in disease-free survival or overall survival, and no difference in mortality. So I think D3 is out. D1 versus D2, you can see the hazard ratio for overall survival, no significant difference. Disease-free survival, no significant difference. The disease-specific survival was the only one which was actually statistically significant, and mortality was much higher in D2 versus D1. So looking at this slide, you will say D1 is equal D2, but I say no, and I'll show you why. So this is a slide that shows you the different studies. Most of them are actually randomized trials. This is the number of patients, and this is the number per hospital per year, the number of cases done per hospital per year, and this is the mortality and morbidity. Those are the 2 European trials that actually were in the meta-analysis. You can see that the number of cases they have been doing 1.5 in the MRC trial per hospital per year, and in the Dutch trial 1 per hospital per year. And of course, the mortality is so high and morbidity is so high. The Italian mastered actually the D2 dissection, and accordingly, here they have been doing about 4.5 cases per hospital per year, and the mortality was 0. If you look at the Hong Kong, for example, 7.5 cases per hospital per year, mortality only 3%. Taiwanese, 18 cases per year, only 0% mortality. So the Dutch trial, which was the biggest, largest European trial, showed no significant difference between D1 and D2 after 15 years. If you look carefully at the mortality, you see death from gastric cancer was much higher in the D1 than in the D2, which is in the blue. If you look at mortality from non-gastric cancer, you will see the D2 has much higher. And you can see that the curve takes off very quickly, indicating that there's something post-operatively happening to those patients, making them die. And that's the inexperienced surgeon. Now, if you look at the data from Taiwan, D1 versus D2 or 3, randomized trial, you can see that the death was 0 in both arms. And of course, there was an improvement in survival in the D2, D3 as compared to D1. So, in my mind, there's no question that D2 should be the standard of care for curative intended resection gastrectomy. Now, what are the options if you have a localized gastric cancer? So, of course, we have chemotherapy and radiotherapy. How would we put those in the context? We can actually go either like the MAGIC trial, pre-op chemo, surgery, and then post-op chemo. Or you can do just adjuvant chemotherapy, surgery followed by adjuvant chemotherapy. Or you could go with adjuvant chemoradiation like the intergroup trial, surgery followed by chemotherapy and chemoradiation. Or you can actually do just like the MAGIC trial, but add chemoradiation pre-operatively. So there's several options, but you see that chemotherapy is nearly in each and every one of them. So I think there's every evidence to support the benefit of chemotherapy alone in resectable gastric cancer, regardless if you want to use it pre-operatively or post-operatively. Let me prove to you that. So those are 5 meta-analyses done over time about adjuvant chemotherapy in gastric cancer. And 4 out of those 5 show statistically significant improvement in overall survival. The latest one was in 2008. The hazard ratio for survival was 0.78, adjuvant chemotherapy alone. 2 recent trials showed that adjuvant chemotherapy improves survival in patients with gastric cancer. The Japanese trial used S1 versus observation. Hazard ratio was 0.68, and the Korean trial, the classic, used Zelox hazard ratio of 0.66. Both of them used D2 as the standard of care for surgery. Now, there's also 2 large, well-known randomized trials. There was a small Dutch trial that was negative, which I did not put, but the largest trials were 2 European trials looking at perioperative chemotherapy, no radiation, in patients with gastric cancer. And this is the MAGIC trial, used ECF, and you see here the 5-year survival is 36%. The French trial used 5-FU cisplatin, 5-year survival 38%. Also, the hazard ratio as compared to no chemotherapy was 0.75 and 0.69. So very similar to adjuvant chemotherapy. Now, there's criticism about those trials, but what I see the major criticism is the surgery was not in all patients D2. So it was a mixture between D1 and D2. If you look at read the articles, they don't specifically specify that was a D2. Now, so the question is, I prove it to you right now that chemotherapy improves survival, whether you use it perioperatively or whether you use it post-operatively, which is adjuvant. So does radiation play a role? Well, I think it plays a role only in patients who have suboptimal surgery, so D1 or less than D1. And you can see this from the intergroup trial. The intergroup trial randomized patient with gastrectomy in the US to observation versus chemoradiation, initially one cycle of chemo, then chemoradiation with 5-fluorouracil, then more chemotherapy. Now, the intergroup showed an improvement in overall survival for the chemoradiation arm as compared to observation. And if you look at the improvement in survival, it was mostly in patients who had D0 resection and D1, but much less in patients who actually had D2, which comprised about only 10% of the patients who had resection. So, drawbacks of the trial, about 45% of the patients had insufficient surgery, which is D0, and 10% only D2, and the rest were D1. And of course, grade 3 toxicity 41%, grade 4 toxicity 32%. 33% of the patient had, of course, inadequate plan. So once again, does radiation improve the result in patients with D2 resected patient? Well, the two trials were actually addressed. One of them, this is a European trial, actually stopped early because of poor accrual. Was supposed to accrue 147 patients, randomized to adjuvant chemotherapy with docetaxel and cisplatin, 6 cycles, versus the same plus radiation. And there was no difference in disease-free survival or overall survival, but remember this trial was stopped early because of poor accrual. The trial that actually showed the result is the ARTIST trial, and the ARTIST trial actually randomized patients to 6 cycles of chemotherapy with capecitabine platinum versus capecitabine platinum, and they put actually in between radiation therapy with capecitabine. The result showed no significant difference in overall survival. Those are patients who had D2 dissection. If you look at subgroup analysis, you will find there's 2 groups of patients that did better with the radiation arm, and that's those with positive nodes and those with intestinal histology. But if I tell you that 80 to 90% of the patients in this trial were actually positive nodes, then how could the survival be negative? So, to answer the question once and for all, does the radiation play a role in patients who had a D2 dissection? The ARTIST-2 trial is being planned. Patients with positive nodes, post-resection, post-D2 resection will be randomized to 3 arms. That's been done in Japan. S1 for 8 cycles, chemotherapy, or S1 plus oxaliplatin, and the third arm adding to the S1 and oxali radiation therapy. This trial has not started yet. There are 2 other trials that are actually trying to define the role of radiation. One of them is called the Top Gear trial, and basically it actually evaluates if in D2 dissection does chemotherapy, like in the MAGIC trial, perioperative, is enough, or adding radiation in the preoperative setting makes a difference. So this is the MAGIC arm in one arm, and the second one, it adds radiation in the preoperative setting. And the second one actually is looking at adding radiation in the postoperative, but not in D1, not in D2, in D1 plus patient. And basically those are patients, this is the CRITIC trial, looking at patients who actually undergo resection. This is perioperative treatment. So patient will either go on the perioperative therapy just like the MAGIC in the first top arm, and in the lower arm there will be radiation in the post-operative part. So I want to conclude and say that adjuvant chemotherapy improves survival in resected gastric cancer, regardless of whether we use it in the perioperative or in the adjuvant setting alone. Perioperative chemo improves survival in resected gastric patient, regardless of the lymph node dissection, whether it was D1 or D2. Perioperative chemotherapy improves survival. Adjuvant chemoradiation is only indicated if you know that your patient had, at the present time, suboptimal surgery, especially D0 and possibly D1, and the role of preoperative chemoradiation or postoperative chemoradiation in patients who had a D2 dissection is yet to be determined. We have to wait for those trials to get an answer. Thank you very much.
Now it's Muhammad Abdallah who will defend, Dr. Muhammad Abdallah who will defend the chemoradiotherapy in gastric cancer. Good luck.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really honored to be here today, and I really thank the organizing committee for inviting me for this presentation. Actually, my friend and colleague, Dr. Bazrameshi, had made things maybe easy to me because he mentioned a lot of what I have to mention. So, we are not contradicting. We are playing in the same zone. And everyone has his actual role. Before proceeding, some of the basic facts reflecting the dismal outcome of gastric cancer, that although we have decreasing incidence over the past decades, still gastric cancer represents the second, maybe third cause of cancer-related death, where surgical resection is the mainstay and the cornerstone in the curative management. Still, we have significant numbers of patients are going to have local regional failure, either in the anastomotic line or in the draining lymph nodes. This variable, this figure is quite variable, maybe more than 65, as I mentioned, maybe 70-80% in some of the literatures. And to complicate the whole issue, that the 10-year overall survival for the whole stages is only around 20%. Making things more complicated, that we have not only a wide ethnic and geographic variations between Asia and other countries regarding disease presentation, stage and diagnosis, but to go through the management itself, as patients there are usually diagnosed at earlier stages, while surgeons are more aggressive than other countries in the practice of gastrectomy operations, as we will see. Here is the recurrence after surgery from randomized clinical trials, and we can notice that definitely patients with D2, as Dr. Bazrameshi said, are going to have much lower recurrence rate than those with D1, if we are not going to adopt any of the adjuvant strategies. The question is, can we go better? We have to remember that adequate surgery, it means that we should achieve R0 resection coupled with D2 dissection of the lymph nodes. In the majority of the world, usually gastric cancer is going to present with rather advanced disease, because in the Asian countries, mainly Japan, they have screening programs for early detection of gastric cancer. So it's logical that we will go to do something to downstage what we have through a neoadjuvant or perioperative strategy of management. We should not forget that we are dealing with advanced disease usually, so there should be a place for the adjuvant treatment. Also, the majority of patients, maybe up to 70 to 80% of those who are dying of gastric cancer are going to die while they have a local regional failure. It's present almost always in all patients. So we should augment our approach. We should go for something else. And the only local regional management, as we know, is radiation therapy. Radiation therapy, as Dr. Bazrameshi said, was gained popularity in many trials, but the trial that mainly govern or control our daily practice is the Intergroup 0116 adjuvant trial, randomizing 556 patients with stage 1, 2, 3, 4 to surgery. Here, surgery was D1 or less. to observation versus concurrent chemoradiation. Concurrent chemoradiation versus leucovorin. I'm not going to mention the protocol again, so as not to lose time. But it was proved at that time that we have significant improvement of the overall as well as relapse-free or disease-free survival. This figure was maintained in the update of the same trial 10 years later, and it was positive, and telling us that the addition of radiation therapy was significantly associated with improvement in the all treatment outcomes, especially this is suitable across all subsets of patients, except for those who have non-intestinal pathology. I mean the diffuse, what we call clinically as Leiomyositis plastica, and I am sure that all of the practitioners here, when we are facing this disease entity or this subset of disease, usually we know that we are not going to do much for the patient. Again, the ARTIST trial, as Dr. Bazramashi said, here patients were randomized following D2 resection, 458 patients, to capecitabine platinum for 6 courses as an adjuvant treatment versus capecitabine interposed between 2 cycles in front at the beginning and the end with radiation therapy in the middle. Here, yes, there was no significant improvement, although we have numerical, but it was not reaching the statistical significance of improving the disease-free or the overall survival. But when we look to the lower curve, this was for those with lymph nodes positive. Subset analysis of the ARTIST trial indicated that addition of radiation therapy is going to improve significantly the disease-free survival. When we go by stage of disease for analysis by stage of disease, still we have the significance when we are talking about stage 3 disease, those with lymph nodes. We have improvement, significant improvement of the disease-free survival, and the p-value is highly significant, as we see, 0.001. Regarding the local recurrence, it was not significantly affected, although numerically it was halved by the addition of radiation therapy. Update analysis of the ARTIST trial, the same. We don't have improvement of the overall survival, but we have shift trend improvement over the long time that the addition of radiation therapy would have some benefit among all subset of patients. Still, further analysis following the long-term follow-up indicated that the local recurrence with the addition of radiation therapy is nearly halved, and the same for disease-free survival significantly improved among those with lymph nodes positive. And as we see, the p-value is highly significant. And I feel comfort when I can say that post-operative radiation therapy is clearly indicated for those with positive lymph nodes, intestinal histopathology, the non-diffuse, not Leiomyositis plastica, irrespective of what we have regarding the surgical resectability. So, go more and more specific in the meta-analysis of more than 7 to 8 randomized clinical trials published in the Red Journal in the year 2013. We have continued maintained benefit for the addition of post-operative radiation therapy in terms of significantly improving the overall disease-free, and we have a specific attention to those with lymph nodes positive. Overall survival is going to be improved significantly, and according to this meta-analysis, there is an absolute benefit of about 20% following the adoption of radiation therapy for those patients. Radiation therapy clearly indicated in the post-operative management for intestinal type, incomplete nodal dissection, and positive nodal disease. We should not forget that gastric cancer should be treated through a multimodal approach. And here, a summary of what we have from the clinical trials with different strategies, the neoadjuvant or adjuvant with or without radiation therapy. Definitely, All of them are associated with significant impact on improving the survival outcome. So, every patient should be considered to be treated through a multi-modality team approach to be discussed and to find where is the place for chemotherapy, for radiation therapy, or even for palliation by any other way. We should not forget that we have a wide range of geographic practice variations. This is very important because surgery is a cornerstone. Yes, in Japan they usually go for D3, D2, but in the other regions of the world, usually it's D1 and to less extent D2. Here in USA, they are depending on the intergroup trial to decide for the adjuvant concurrent chemoradiation. While in Europe, they do go for neoadjuvant approach, the MAGIC trial. While in Japan, they have the D2 plus resection with S1 adjuvant treatment, and we know it is not available in our region, but according to their results, for myself, I am eager to work with it. Finally, my take-home message that clinical trials are still crucial. We need to go better. We need to know more through randomization, well-designed clinical trials. Radiation therapy is appealing in improving the local control and the disease-free survival, in particular among patients with lymph nodes positive. Post-operative concurrent chemoradiation would be preferred for the non-cardiac lesions because majority of the trials were incorporating the gastroesophageal junction lesion. And this is something special where I do believe that we have to go for concurrent chemoradiation in the pre-operative setting, either to improve the patient's symptomatology and to improve also the results following surgical resection. Here I'm going to stop and waiting for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you all, the attendants and the speakers, and lastly, the chairpersons. Thank you for you all.